This is episode 2. I'm doing it at the end of a stream. We're currently almost 7 hours into stream, so we'll see how this one goes. This one should be a bit more straightforward. I have 4 videos lined up. I don't think we'll need them, and I've got some stuff to try. And, maybe I'll work in some of my own from the previous compression lesson and tweak some of those changes I made, as well as see what we got with this. This first one, I believe we were looking at compression from this person as well. This is their YouTube, EDM tips, and this is the specific video. And then, let's do it. Let's see. These are mistakes, but having watched some of this stuff seems like a good place to start. Secrets. Yeah, I don't know if this is like a secrets type situation, but maybe we'll flip through them and
mix your own music and you don't properly understand or implement gain staging, you could be ruining your mixes. Today I'm going to uncover the 7 gain staging mistakes that almost all producers make and how to fix them so that your music will sound instantly better. My name's Will from EDM Tips, and over the past 6 years I've helped thousands of bedroom music producers just like you get their music to a professional level and get released on some of the world's biggest labels. Now, before I knew about gain staging, I was banging my head on the wall thinking, why isn't my music sounding as good as...
Now, I'm pretty sure he even says this in this video. I think for someone with my understanding of it, gain staging is going to be important for building it up so I don't have to tweak things way later on. And he'll explain a lot of that. But it's also not, I'm almost positive one of the specific things he says is not like, it has to be this, it has to be minus this dB with this much headroom, like average, but this dB peak.
My favorite producers, and when I learnt about these 7 mistakes I'm going to show you today, my music instantly elevated to a new level, and that's what you're going to learn today. But you need to understand the other points first, so stick around. Better mixes every time you start a new project. But you need to understand the other points first, so stick around and watch the whole video. But firstly, what difference does gain staging actually make? And we will explain exactly what it is as well, but let's just compare 2 examples. So this example hasn't been gain staged properly.
It is tough because until you hear the next one,
everything's a bit muddy. So now let's listen to the same
sounds all right
when the gain staging is done properly. It's still loud and punchy, right? But there's clarity and there's dynamics in the mix. And that's exactly why gain staging is so important to understand. If you enjoy this video, consider subscribing to my channel.
Not thinking that first one was that bad.
For tips every single day.
Why I need to do this.
Download my 30 most essential mixing tips completely free below this video. Okay, without further ado, let's hop into the door. I'm going to show you these 7 mistakes and how to fix them. Okay, so the first mistake that most producers make is not understanding gain staging properly or just ignoring it altogether. So let's quickly touch upon what gain staging is. All it really means is being aware of the level of your signal of every single track in your mix at every single stage of the processing. So if it goes from one plugin into another, what level of volume should it be at when it's going into that next plugin? What level of volume should it be at when it hits your channel fader, hits your group bus, and ultimately your master bus? It's that simple. But ignoring that can give you terrible results. And it doesn't matter if you're mixing within your production session or whether you've actually got bounce down stems like in this situation, gain staging is super important for both. And once again,
I'm hoping to find a good basics. I think I currently don't use this setup. I believe this is, I don't know which view this is. I think I usually use session view. I don't remember what the 2 are. So maybe I don't. But I think with this, it's a lot easier to see than those little levels.
And it doesn't matter whichever DAW you're using, whether you're using Ableton, Logic, FL Studio, Studio One, or Cubase, And it doesn't matter which genre of music you are creating as well. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we've got enough headroom. That means space before we hit the clipping level, when things start to go a bit distorted. And ultimately, when all our tracks are playing together, we want our master channel to be peaking at about -6. So that's what gain staging is, and it's important for 2 reasons. One, we want to avoid unwanted clipping everywhere in our signal path throughout the whole process to make sure we don't have any unwanted distortion. The second reason is if you are using analog modeled plugins, that is plugins that are created to mimic a real-life piece of audio equipment, they operate best when the level of volume going into them hits a sweet spot. So that's the second reason for gain staging, and I'm going to touch upon that sweet spot very soon, as it were. So now we understand what gain staging is and why it's important, let's go on to mistake number 2, which is not setting your initial levels. As I said, this doesn't matter whether you're doing the mixing within the production.
There's that little, like, changing the channel, not like a changing the channel, but just a high pitch like squeak that.
Phase or in a
I
separate
don't know.
mixing
I would have mixed
project.
that out of this
Let's see
video.
how you do it and why it's important. So for this example, I've reset my mix, I've loaded in the stems, and everything defaults to 0 on the fader channel and 0 on our master channel. That's pretty good, okay, having it there. And the first stage of knowing how to set your levels is to understand the difference between peak volume and average volume, because with gain staging it's most important to consider the average volume, the volume that the signal has over a period of time, rather than one short, sharp, specific peak. A case in point, if we listen to our kick here, you can see it's hitting about -0.66, and that's with the dark green meter here, but the light green meter is the average volume, and you can see it's actually a bit lower than the peak volume, and that's always the case. The peak volume will always be higher than the average volume. Here with the drums, the difference is even more pronounced. So you can see we're peaking at about -12, and our average volume is about -28, -26, something like that. So that's the difference between the peak and the average volume. So what are the ideal volumes for starting your mix with? This little fellow here, in Ableton it's the utility plugin, but in Logic it's called the gain plugin, and every single DAW has the equivalent of one of these. All it really is a volume control. In some DAWs it's called the trim plugin as well. And we need to get...
And you can also, it also has the mono. You might mention that in this video. I've seen lots of bits and pieces of EDM tips video, and I think we watched like half of the compression video for episode 1. Now I'm in the way again. I'll just have to keep an eye on that.
It so that each of our channels is hitting about -18 on the average level. So with all the faders set to 0, let's try that for the kick drum.
And I do already have some ways that I think I could use compression and
is just about in the right place, about -18. You don't need to be super accurate with this, by the way. So now let's do that for the drums as well. So we can just copy our utility plugin over to our drums. We've left the volume fader at 0, but now we've got this gain plugin, this utility. So let's get that so our average volume of our drums is -18, which is the sweet spot for analog plugins. And we can see it's bumping up around there, and it's peaking quite high. Now what we need to do is do exactly the same for every single track in our mix. So I'm going to fast forward and do that now really quickly. Okay, so now we've done that, we're seeing that everything is averaging at about -18. All the faders are on 0, but you can see we're clipping on the master channel. That's not a problem, and you'll see why very
just at the end
shortly.
there,
But
just
these
a
are the
little bit
ideal
of
levels to get your mix. That's not a problem, and you'll see why very shortly. But these are the ideal levels to get your mix started with, because all of these sounds, when they go into an analog model plugin, will be hitting that sweet spot. So this takes me neatly on to gain staging mistake number 3. When you've got your levels set like this, obviously you're going to have to turn some of the instruments down because we're clipping on the master channel.
Yeah, that sound for switching scenes.
And you end up with a small, like, quiet percussive element, for
I'll
example.
never be in the right spot.
You might want that to be really low in the mix, which is absolutely fine. And there might be elements that you want low in the mix, like the strings, for example. Let's do this right down. But what happens is then you end up using your fader right down here. And if you look at the scale here on each fader, it's not linear, it's actually logarithmic. So the gap between 0 and 6 is much bigger than the gap between 54 and 60, which is 6. And if you're mixing down here, it's just a much lower
So
resolution.
yeah, technically you can, but
so the way to get around that issue
strictly
is
it's
you
just
can
more
have
pixels to
another
have
gain
control with.
plugin on after you've got the initial setting gain plugin, and that can attenuate the volume. So in the case of the strings, for example, we've got our initial utility bringing the gain up, so it's averaging about -18, but that's going to mean we have to take our fader right down. So we've got a secondary utility here, which we're just going to take the volume down on, which will allow us to do the fine mixing with our channel fader up and around 0. Let's have a look at that.
So I don't know if it really, my impression is that it doesn't matter as much. Like you can use either and have the utilities that he's got down there. And I do plan on doing that for a lot of my tracks too, I think. But also it's just having more control over that when it comes to...
So it's going to look something more like that. Now the trick here is, and the thing to be careful of, is that you need to put all of your plugins on the channel then in between these two utilities, because you want that sweet spot to be being hit when you're going into each of the plugins in between these two utilities. And if you do that for all of your sounds, you should be able to end up doing the mix roughly up here with the fader, so you're not having to do too much stuff right down low here. Not essential, but does give you a bit more control. And that takes me on to gain staging mistake number 4, which is clipping on the buses. So we've got each of our separate channels, and they're not clipping.
So in Ableton, I mean, maybe he'll explain this, is basically just grouping them. When I pull my project up, the project I'm planning on
fantastic, but we can see
fucking
here
around with a bit.
Bass is both rooted into a bass
I've got
bus,
at least
and we want
a
this
couple.
bass bus to also be hitting the sweet spot. So at the moment, you can see this bass and this bass together mean that ours is a little bit loud, and we're averaging out about -12, which means if we put any analog plugins on this channel here, on the group level, it's going to be slightly hot and over the sweet spot. Simply resolves by putting a utility at the beginning of that group level and just taking down the gain. So we're hitting -18 there as well. Make note that the fader is still up around 0, so we've got all that control. But that's what I mean about making sure your signal flow is gain stage at every step of the process. Now we're about to get onto my 3 biggest mistakes that producers make when it comes to gain staging, but let me know in the comments section. I want to final 3 plugins, and this is really important because some plugins will add or decrease volume, and then it's very hard to hear when you're A/B testing and bypassing them on and off the difference that they're making, as well as the fact that then the signal won't be going into the next plugin at the sweet spot. So we kind of want to maintain that -18 average volume throughout the whole signal path, so we're getting the best results.
I'm trying to remember
every step of the process.
There's something I wanted to do in one of my videos.
Here,
I don't remember if it talks about it in this video or in something
gain
else.
plugin at the initial, and we are averaging about -18 dBFS. So we're going to add some Thickify by Rocket Powered Sound.
Oh,
and
that's
you can get
cute.
this plugin
Okay.
using the
It's
link
so
below
cute.
this video. But let's put some of this on and just get these drums a bit fatter. Add some drive.
I wonder if this is just a saturator? I am learning about some other stuff I could add
Turn this
to.
off, we can hear it's much quieter. And we're also peaking here.
Now, he does a lot of that kind of, a lot of the music I've seen him using his examples, and what he does is a lot of kind of 4 on the floor, the doot, which I don't know if it'd be like, not greatest genres, but like a trance, like kind of some trance and, I don't know. I guess I don't know what genre he would, but which isn't going to be the song I'm going to probably be working on for this episode, but also is going to, I think all of this stuff is still relevant.
And way too loud on the average.
And I do
plugin.
plan on making
So some plugins will have
electronic
an output gain control,
tracks.
and we want to be taking this back down so it's the equivalent volume of when it was going in. Now, if your plugin doesn't have an output gain control, you'll need to put another utility plugin or gain or trim plugin, they're all the same thing, after the fact,
I'm gonna
and
have
then
to
take
make
it down manually. So let's do it both ways. First is
get my
take it
utilities.
down, so we're averaging about -18 again, like so. And now when we bypass it, we can really hear the difference it's making without confusing our ears just because it's louder. We
Yeah, so
also
he
know that
turns
this
it on,
signal is going to be going
but it
into
still
our
stays
next
at the same
analog
loudness.
plugin
It's just
if we
you can
use one
hear
at the sweet spot.
what it's doing to it.
Now, as I said, if you don't have a
kinda
output
crazy.
gain on that plugin, you'll have to be doing it auto or manually, sorry. So let's put a utility on there and just take it down like this until it's hitting -18. Now what you can do at that point is group those two plugins together
On PC, I think it's Control
and then just
G,
bypass the group.
I think.
Magic, eh? So mistake number 6 is wasting time by not setting your ideal gain structure straight away. So if I'm producing, I will already have certain volumes programmed in, like I will have about -10 to peak on the kick drum because I know it's going to be averaging at about -18. But if you're using audio stems and bringing them into a completely fresh mixing project, as I have been doing today, there are a few things you can do to save yourself a lot of time. The first is to simply copy and paste a utility gain plugin on every single channel that you bring into the mix. The next is just to make sure your master fader is left at 0, because ultimately we
I don't
want
know
our
if
mix to be
I have any
peaking at
projects
about
that are left at
-6.
master
And if
faders
we
left
move
at
this
0.
fader, it's going to confuse things. And the last thing, as we've already touched upon, is to make sure that any group processing we do is also gain stage and that we have a utility plugin there or a gain plugin to make sure that our actual buses are averaging at about -18 as well. Which takes us on to my very final and the biggest gain staging mistake I see producers making. I get this every couple of weeks from my students in my music production accelerator, and that is obsessing over gain staging. So we've touched upon some very important points today, but the number -18 isn't an absolute science. It
Okay.
doesn't matter if you're
That
up
was-
and down a bit.
this video was
you
for
don't
that,
need
but
to
not-
invest in fancy VU meter plugins to measure the average volume, especially
Now I'm
when
trying to remember if it was-
DAWs have built-in average volume measurement nowadays as well. So with Ableton, for example, we could see there are these two different levels, the dark green, the light green. You can just do it by eye. We don't need to be hitting exactly -18. We need to be hitting roughly somewhere around that. So the only two things you always need to be aware of is one, that you're not clipping anywhere within the signal path, and
Okay.
two, you are hitting the sweet spot when you are going into your analog spot. And that's it, guys.
All right, so that was EDM tips. I like that one. This is tough because I don't know what I don't know about gain staging. But I feel like that gives me, I feel like that's the gist. So maybe I'll click through some of the other ones. That I've got ready. Creating headroom.
So in this,
Let me open these up and kind of look at lengths of them and see.
gain structure,
Audio University. Okay. I do like seed to stage. This is a 20-minute video. Seems like this has some other good mixing advice that could be. And actually, I'm pretty sure I do have seed to stages. I think I used one of his plugins, like a kind of a custom plugin type thing he created for guitar effects. All right, so I guess with that in mind, I'm going to watch this one. So video number 2 is from seed to stage. I probably will be clicking around, but you can find the specific video here. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, links will be in the comments or in the description. I am going to really quick. Okay. I'm going to make sure. This helps me when I put it in order, because then this, since it's... Oh, come on, don't do this to me. That's going to start playing.
If you
isn't it?
produce or
Yep. Okay, I don't know why this is doing this. Well, what if I move that over there? Then I can do it off while you guys are watching, while we're watching this together.
Hey friends! Of all the over-explained and misunderstood concepts in music production, gain staging has to be the most ubiquitous. Everybody wants you to think that you're doing it wrong and that they alone are going to show you some magical key to a perfect mix. Instead of insulting your intelligence, I'll just quickly explain what gain staging is, then I'll show you a bunch of practical examples and tips you can use to get more of what you want out of your DAW. So this buzz phrase gain staging is simply feeding the right amount of signal into gain.
One moment. I have to change my temperature really quick. All right. Sorry, I realized
Right amount of signal into gain-dependent
didn't
or
have my heat on.
nonlinear audio effects
feel it
to
getting
get
cold.
the sound that you want. So what is a nonlinear effect? Well, it's an effect that sounds different depending upon how much signal is going into it. For example, distortion, saturation, compression, limiting, bit crushing, amp simulators, envelope followers, and so on. These are all nonlinear effects. These, as opposed to linear effects, which are chorus, flangers, phasers, reverbs, delays, and so on. Let's check out what I mean. Okay, so here we are in session view, and the reason I'm doing that is because I've taken this little guy and I pulled this
So
up
this
so
is
that we can
session
look at the
view.
VU meters of each of the tracks. This is the level we
I'll
can see
forget
right
that.
here. Now, a lot of people get confused. Right off the bat, this is not a gain control, okay? This is the output slider. This is the last thing that affects the signal in the entire signal chain, okay? This is how loud the track's output will be, okay? This is an output control. Now, if you look between each one of these
I don't know
processors,
the
we have
difference.
my synth right here, and then we have a bunch of different processors. We have the auto filter, utility, so on. You can see the gain between each one of these effects. Okay, so take a look. Now check this out. If I turn the slider all the way down, you can still see the gains or the levels
The
between
signal is
each one
still-
of these effect processors, right? That's the first thing to understand. This is an output control, okay? Now the next thing to understand is that utility right here, this device is the vehicle for gain adjustment in Ableton Live if the effect doesn't have its own input or output, okay? Watch this. I can turn this gain down right here, and we can see there's signal here and signal here, but there's no signal here. I have to start turning it up. So anywhere where you don't have gain control within a track, you can simply slap a utility in there, and there's nothing wrong with turning it up or down, okay? So I know these are some pretty boring concepts, but that's just something to understand. Okay, so linear versus nonlinear effects. Chorus, like most modulation effects, are linear effects, meaning it doesn't matter how much gain you push into them, they won't change how they sound. So the way I'm going to demonstrate this is I'm going to grab a second utility and put it after the chorus, okay? What I'm then going to do is group all of these together, okay?
So
Now that they're all in a group, I'm going
okay, so at least in Ableton, and I'm guessing you can do this in other DAWs. I know a lot of plugins will have the, I don't know if it's source volume or source gain or whatever, and then they'll have the output, kind of like the previous video that we looked at. So that's, I thought that's what that did. Maybe he's just explaining it because I think that's what that does, but.
to reveal the macros by clicking this little button, and we're going to map the gain, input and output gain, so that when I turn this gain up, this gain turns down the exact same amount. All right, so let's go ahead and map that. Mapping this first gain to this knob, and I'm mapping the second gain of the second utility to this knob, and I'm just going to invert them, okay? So that means that if I turn this any direction, watch this, the gain will go up in this one and the gain will go down in this one. Right? So let's go ahead and listen to what happens when I do this. We can hear that no matter what I do, no matter where I put this, it sounds exactly the same. That's because the gain is changing linearly, okay? Now, let's go ahead and do this again, but this time let's do it with a saturator, okay? So I'm going to cut this
Okay, so
chorus
source
out,
signal
right?
must be a lot more
and I'm going to
important.
put in a saturator. Now, I'm going to turn the saturator on. Now listen to what happens as I change this gain. I'll put it back at as close to 0 as I can get it. Okay, so starting from 0, now take a listen to this. At this moment, we're on the analog clip saturation mode, so take a listen. And now we can clearly see that there's more breakup, there's more harmonics in the signal, but what we can also see is that as I'm increasing gain and compensating for that gain over here, it's actually going down in level. We can see the RMS going down in level. Let's choose a different clipping algorithm. Let's choose medium curve. I'll go back to the middle, okay? And let's do it again.
I'm just Googling
So
RMS.
what we can clearly
just to
see is that
if-
saturator is a nonlinear effect. It sounds different and behaves different and outputs different levels depending upon how much gain is going into it, okay? Now, this is all very unnecessary, what I have here, okay?
RMS, or root mean square. Yeah, I would not have guessed that. Refers to the electrical power your audio signal creates over time. That level is important for producers because it combines ideas of perceived loudness with the more easily quantifiable metrics we use to measure amplitude.
I can go ahead and ungroup this, all right?
Per
I can
Google.
remove these utilities from here at this moment because guess what? Saturator itself has a drive and an output. Now, the thing to understand is that every single nonlinear effect has a different name for the same thing, okay? Sometimes it's gain, sometimes it's drive, but at the end of the day, this is an input level, okay? That's all that this is. Watch what happens as I turn this up. So it's low right now. This is representing the input signal.
I will say that shit confuses me a lot, like, because I have to, the way I learn things, when things are labeled different, especially if I recognize that they're all from Ableton, that stuff will throw me off. But I think that's why seed to stage adding stuff like that is really helpful for me.
Thus far, it's been pretty linear, but once we start to get around this line right here, it's going to start breaking up and it's going to become nonlinear. Now you can hear that that's gotten pretty loud, right? I've put 8 decibels of gain into the saturator. That's why there's also an output control. So I'm taking out, for example, 8 decibels. And now when I A/B this, we should relatively have about the same level.
Yeah, the levels stay the same, but you can
And we
definitely
do.
hear.
As you can see, the peak level is a bit higher when the saturator is off, but when the saturator is on, the RMS level is a little bit higher, right? Take a look. So that's the crucial thing to understand. There are linear effects and nonlinear effects. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a bunch of different examples where what you feed into nonlinear effects as well as how you shape the signal vastly changes the result. All right, let's check it out.
All right,
So
I might
moving on to track
kind
2,
of
this is just a drum beat. It's
right
kind of
arrow
a dirty
click through
drum beat.
these,
Check it
but-
out. And here we have a saturator, and as you can see, our signal is going well up above the clipping line here, and we're on the medium curve setting. It's one of my favorite settings on saturator. Now,
I wish, and maybe there is a way, and videos like this kind of help, but if I was looking for, like, what does this line indicate on a saturator? I mean, maybe I could search, what does a line indicate? Like, stuff like that is kind of what holds me back when I'm like, I could just play a game on stream, or off stream, or I could do music. I'm like, oh, but I want to work with this, but I don't know what this indicates, you know? What is line? What does line indicate? I'm just going to see, like, what does line... Actually, I would need... Never mind.
have a compressor before the saturator, all right?
Hovering my mouse over it might
First
help
thing
with
to
something
know
like
is that this is not always what you want to do. For some reason, people think that there is a specific order to effects every single time, and that is just not true, okay?
But sometimes.
Again, there is not a perfect recipe for anything in audio, okay? Especially with nonlinear effects. In this...
I do wonder. I wonder if compressing it, which is lowering the volume of the loudest parts and bringing it up in the quieter parts, I would think that it could matter here.
Specific case, it makes sense to put a compressor before the saturator. Why? Because I need to shape the signal. Take a listen to what this saturator sounds like when the compressor is off. we can hear that the kit kind of sounds scratchy. It's just not that pleasing to listen to, right? This is what it sounds like without any of the effects. Kind of dry and boring, right? I needed to spice the signal up a bit, and the saturator's doing a good job. However, it sounds scratchy when I turn it on. But listen to what happens when I turn on the glue compressor, okay? Listen to the difference. I'll go ahead and A-B it. Listen to how the compressor prepares the snare sound for going into the saturator. Listen to how different it sounds.
But it makes sense. Oh, never mind. Okay.
Listen to how much more pleasing it is, right? That's because of the transient shaping that's happening with the compressor. There's a little bit of attack, letting a little bit of the initial snare splat through, but it's instantly pushing the signal down and then bringing it back up over this release time. So there is a nice shaping to the signal, and that is a non-linearity, okay? Depending upon how much gain is going into this compressor and then how much gain is...
That makes sense.
If I were to turn this compressor on with the makeup gain turned down, this is an output control, okay?
Oh, so it's making the entire signal quieter because it's not making up for the quieter parts. It's just kind of limiting or compressing the louder parts.
If I was to do that, what would happen is that the saturator would behave differently. Take a listen. See, I'm barely getting any breakup. So I need to have makeup gain here to make up for how much gain is being reduced every single time I hit this threshold. Listen.
I'm definitely seeing a little bit more value in session
So
view.
you can see that even though the RMS level is almost the same level with the makeup gain all the way down versus when it's up, we're getting drastically different sounds. Hear how much more the saturator has to do with the signal when this makeup gain is up to where it was before. That's such a crucial thing to understand. Okay, so the next thing
It's
we're going to do,
huge,
I'm going to
folks.
turn the saturator off and let's just listen to the compressor. Now, this compressor is sitting on a bus of tracks, right? There are multiple tracks. There's a kick drum, a snare drum, and so on, right? In this case, the snare drum is doing what I like to call challenging this compressor. The snare drum is so loud compared to the rest of the drums that the compressor has to work harder to take care of that snare drum, okay? So this is another thing to understand when it comes to gain staging. I need to actually look at this snare drum and maybe turn the snare drum down a little bit. Check it out. Look how much more the needle is...
Actually, I want to go back really quick to see.
So this is
'Cause I
another
do
thing to understand when it comes...
I have at least one of my tracks, and I was thinking about doing it differently because I wasn't sure how much control it gave me. But in one of my tracks, I definitely have it. I've got the drum stack.
comes to gain staging.
So right over here, like you can see, he's got the ride, the crash, tom, but it looks like, so is that snare hit? Looks like I could set it up so I was doing a specific one. I might have to do an instrument rack.
I need to actually look at this snare drum and maybe turn the snare drum down a little bit. Check it out. Look how much more the needle is moving back whenever that snare drum hits. So if I go in here and I bring the snare drum down a little bit, take a listen. So with this setting, we're accomplishing more. The kick drum now has punch as well as the snare drum, and it all sounds a bit more balanced. Take a listen.
Oh, okay. I'm already getting some ideas for a song I'm not sure I'm going to work on tonight. But
So when you have a compressor on a group of tracks like this, it's very important to make sure they're balanced going into the compressor because it, again, is a nonlinear effect, and it relies so heavily on what you're feeding into it. So I'll turn the saturator back on, and I'll move on to the next track. Now, in this case, this is a bass line. Check it out. Now, you might be looking at this and being like, what on earth? Why would you scoop so much of this body out of the bass? Well, in this mix, specifically in this mix, what I wanted to do was get a little bit more of the clicky top end of this bass line, right? But looking at this, you can see that I have an EQ before this compressor, okay? And so again, there is no magic order of effects. There is never a magic order of effects. This EQ, I might use an EQ after a compressor, or I might use it before.
Or
In
both.
this case, let's explore why I'm using this EQ before this compressor, okay? I'm gonna turn the EQ off. Now look at how the compressor behaves when I do that. We
So
can see that
8-9
we're getting gain
decibels of
reduction
gain
all the way
reduction.
up to -10. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if that's what I'm going for, but with this EQ on like this, what's happening is that the bass is getting clamped down on so hard by the compressor that I'm not enjoying it, okay? And so what I'm thinking about here is I want the top end of this bass. I want the clickety sounds, right? That's what I want in this mix. So when I turn this EQ on, watch how much gain reduction we're getting.
So maybe he'll explain this as well. But what's happening is, so this is cutting out, it's lowering the volume, the gain of those areas. So the compressor, instead of starting its attack, right there, or maybe before the reduction, it was up here or something, just a lot higher. But he's giving more room for it by bringing it down before, and then the compressor can work on other parts of the signal.
So we can see that we're getting about -5, -5.5 at the very most in our gain reduction, but the bass sounds more pleasing. It sounds more balanced, right? So as you can see, it's very important what you're feeding the compressor. So maybe the perception up until this point is that these nonlinear effects have perfect settings, that there's some perfect threshold or input. Staging means learning how these effects react to different types of signals that you feed into them, all right? Let's look at another
It's going to take
example.
me a lot of practice.
So this bass move that I did might make a little bit more sense to you when you hear this other bass, and this is kind of supporting the lowest octave of the song. Take a listen. Now let's go ahead and I'll add this lead as well, and we'll listen to the whole track. Okay, so this next example might be a bit more advanced, but it's pretty simple once you understand what's going on. Right here I have a chorus going into an
Omega
amp.
3s.
And now amp is an amp simulator, so there's a lot of stuff going on under the hood. This is basically a saturator circuit, but you also have probably some compression in there, some different styles of EQ for the input and output stage. So it's a...
I should just wait till I'm done chewing this trail mix. But for what it's worth, in case anyone's watching live or watching on YouTube, one of the reasons I'm doing this live and recording this instead of just watching this and having, just basically just learning and practicing this stuff offline is because I'm explaining stuff like the compression or the EQ before the compression. Because saying it out loud helps me. It just helps me with kind of solidifying it, but also it gives people a chance, like they can, clarify or correct if I'm wrong about that stuff. So please feel free to do that in the YouTube comments or in the Twitch chat, twitch.tv/almighty.
non-linear effect, okay? Now listen to this. I'm going to go ahead and solo this. This chorus also has a low cut. The reason that they put this control in here is that so when you are putting a lot of chorus on stuff and you're using high wet amounts, you're not putting the subs in the side channel, okay? This will focus the bass into the mids instead of on the sides, okay? So listen to what happens though as I crank this control up. Wait a minute, I thought chorus was a nonlinear effect. Well, it is. What's happening is that we're changing the signal character going into the amp. You can see that amp has a control here called dual mode, okay? When the output is in dual mode, it basically is making 2 amps, okay? And it's processing the left and the right signal separately. So when I change what is being fed into the mid or the side channel here, you can hear that the amp is reacting. So again, back down low, we get... And as I crank it up, listen. Now, maybe that's more of what we're going for, okay? Now, another thing I want to point your attention to is over here. When you have a long list of nonlinear effects here, you can see all these effects I've got here. We've got amp and glue compressor, which are both nonlinear effects. When you have a whole stack of those in a row, and most of the time when you're making basses, especially if you're into EDM or that whole thing, you might have a long stack
That
of
whole
these.
thing.
If you go back to the very beginning over here onto the synth itself, you'll hear that these nonlinearities will have a much more drastic effect when you are starting to mess with the controls in the synth that's creating the original signal. Take a listen to what happens when I change the filter frequency.
So for what it's worth, if you saw him automating that control, let's see where are we at, 1537. And he was automating a control over there that had one, it was turning the input gain up, but the output gain down, and he had it mixed, and it was a linear one, so you couldn't tell the difference when they were both being turned at the same time. So you can automate that. And you can also automate things like the filter and you can do a lot of different things with it, but that's how you're going to get those wubs in various music, or just textures sometimes.
You can hear just how that tiny little move right there is
If you
very
go
drastic on this whole thing, right? So real quick, if you're enjoying the video, you should check out my free webinar where I produce a track from start to finish in Ableton. The link is up here and in the description of the video.
Again, I put the link in Twitch already, and it will be in the description. To this video will be in the description of my video. But wait, is this just the subscribe button? My music. Okay, yeah, I have used some of his Ableton devices, so I don't know which one he's referring to. Wait, oh, it is. Did he say comments or description? I don't remember. So it's something to enroll in, but it's just on his main website. And again, there's probably easier ways for me to do this, but I just really want to make sure that these, I don't know. I don't know how I feel all the time about, using their videos this way, but oh.
I'm sure you'll learn a lot, and you can also find out about my Ableton online courses. Between all three of these, there's 50 plus hours of hyper-focused Ableton content, which makes Seed to Stage, to my knowledge, the most robust Ableton course available on the internet. So go check out the link. I'm sure you'll be happy that you did. Anyway, let's get back to it. All right, so the last thing I want to look at is the master track. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab a limiter, and let's try to get this track loud. So again, with all of these nonlinear effects, a limiter is also a nonlinear effect. As you can see, we have an input gain here, and then the ceiling is the output gain. Basically, no matter how much signal I feed into this limiter, if it's doing its job, it should only output at the very most negative 0.3 decibels, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cranking the audio into this limiter, and we're going to crank it pretty hard because I want to show you something, all right? So you can see that we've got some significant distortion here, okay? There's some significant pumping and distortion in this signal. Let's go ahead and we'll set a release time maybe to get a little bit of a smoother result. There we go. So this sounds a little bit smoother, but it's still got that pumping problem, right? There's a little bit less distortion when I turned off the auto mode and turned the release down a bit. Okay, so what do we do about this? This is where you can use all the knowledge, hopefully, that you've gained up until this point to prepare this limiter for success, okay? You got to set it up for success, right? So now, sometimes when you put a limiter on a track, you can start to hear what is challenging the limiter, what the track is that's making that limiter clamp down so hard on the signal. And to me, it's this kind of mid-range bass, okay? I can hear...
You can hear it. And sometimes just throwing an EQ on You can tell where the frequencies are, and you might know which instruments are there. I don't think I would be able to do that. I would maybe try just to see if I could, but
that it's pretty much the loudest sound other than the snare and kick in this mix, right? Listen again.
I'm not sure if looking
Right?
right
So
below
what I
me
can
here
do is I can go in here and I can say, all right, I need to turn this compressor down a bit. Let's go ahead and do
is
that.
one Q as well. You can see the peak.
Okay, so let's take a look at the limiter now that I've turned that down about 3 dB. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We can see that the limiter is now pushing the signal down a little bit less, and it sounds a little better. Now, something else we can do is take a look at this low-end bass. Now, this low-end bass is making a lot of deep subs, right? So what I can do is I can take a look at this, and I can see that there's some challenging happening here. So maybe one option I could do is I could turn down the subs of this low-end bass. Now listen to how much smoother that is. Just that small move there. I still have relatively the same amount of what it sounds like low end, but cutting out some of that flabby kind of difficult to hear, just feel kind of low end bass, it sounds a little bit more tight, right? Now let's take a look at the limiter.
Don't shame the flab, man. Who cares if it sounds better?
Now we can see that the limiter is so much less challenged than it was before. But we need to do one more step. I'm going to grab a glue compressor and put...
So I will say one thing, like this video is super, like it's super great, but I'm kind of like, why is the ceiling 0.3? You know, are we limiting? I thought maybe we'd go for minus 6 dB of gain so that when you master it. Also, I guess maybe that's another thing I need to look into, is doing things on the master track the same as mastering, or do you bounce it and then throw it into like back in as it's like a full track and master it that way? It sounds like a stupid question to me, but I don't know.
Put it before the limiter. Now, this is yet another way that you can work on gain staging. So how I want to set this glue compressor up is that I want it to just catch those peaks, okay? The glue compressor is really great, as you saw before, at capturing very, very sharp peaks, okay? So what we can do is I can turn the attack all the way down, right? I'll turn the release kind of down like this, and what we're going to do is we're just going to dig into the snare drum hits and anything that peaks out in volume, okay? Now check this out. As I turn this threshold down, we're going to be able to clean up the sound of the limiter. Listen. Now, I know that this is extreme, and there's still a tiny bit of distortion in that limiter, and it's still a bit of a pumpy mix, but I have it a little bit higher than I normally would just to illustrate this. But as you can see, hopefully this is a mind-blowing moment for you. You can see that the compressor is preparing the signal for the limiter, and the limiter is doing a much better job of making that gain get loud, okay? But it's not pumping. It doesn't sound as crappy as it did before, right? Now, normally I'd probably have the gain down a little bit more in this, and I'd have a little bit less of an extreme compressor setting, but yeah, as you can see, listen to the difference when I A-B this.
I think I
So
can.
as you can clearly hear,
I definitely hear a
see,
difference.
There's no one setting on any of these effects that will work every single time when it comes to non-linear effects. This is why I roll my eyes every single time I see compressor or saturator presets. It simply doesn't make any sense at all, as each signal is unique.
Yeah.
Since so much of how a nonlinear effect behaves depends on the sound coming in, there can never be a single preset that would ever make sense for these type of effects. Now, I do understand presets for modulation effects as well as reverb and delays, because for the most part, these effects are linear effects, right? Cool. Hopefully you're feeling a bit wiser today. If you like this kind of thing, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell. I'll see you next time, everybody. Take it easy.
Okay, I honestly think that's probably good enough for me to start like open up one of my projects. and just tool around with it a little bit, taking this type of stuff in. Might run through these comments on the same video just to see if anyone mentioned other stuff. It's nice to see that other people also don't always know what the knobs are and the pre and post FXs. Stuff like that. It's nice. Okay. I did have... So this is just secrets. Let me see. Clipping, distortion, headroom, signal to noise ratio, and dynamic range. What am I doing? Setting levels. How to control gain structure. Setting up a mix. This one's only 9 minutes, and let's see, we're about 10 minutes away from an hour. Okay, so this is gain, staging, secret. I'm gonna watch. I might skip sections just to see secrets. I know it's good. It's good bait material. It's clickbait. Well, this industry veteran disagrees. As an industry veteran, 45 years, I feel like you gloss over the importance of the setting of the gain, setting the gain of the preamp correctly. Okay, so that's more mic stuff, and that kind of applies, but it's still not. I wouldn't say it's the important. Like it's important, I'm sure, but not like what I'm trying to learn. This very specific, 1.5 to 2 hour thing that I am doing. I should get the downvotes, but I honestly think, most videos have, I've watched every other video, and this is the one that helped, that told me stuff I didn't know. Okay, so this is Audio University. I'm going to watch it.
If you're interested in producing music, there's never...
I am. It's why I'm here. Okay. This one's Audio University, and the video is right here. Let me get them sorted out. Well, I can watch it and do this.
Gain structure is one of the most important topics in audio, but I just don't think it gets the attention it deserves. A solid
I've also heard it's
understanding of gain
over...
staging is absolutely essential.
It's important for me
mixing
because I
music
don't
and
have any
optimizing the
sense of
performance
it, really.
a sound system. But if you're new to this channel, my name is Kyle. Welcome to Audio University. First of all, gain refers to the level difference between the input and output of a system. Proper gain structure means that the level of the signal is optimized throughout the entire signal chain. If the level of the signal isn't optimized at any particular stage of the signal chain, then the signal quality will be degraded.
Yeah, we know this.
As audio technology has changed, however, the goals have remained pretty much the same: to minimize noise and distortion while maximizing dynamic range and headroom. Let's take a look.
Okay, so something like a compressor lowers the dynamic range between the highs and lows. So I guess it's good to know that you don't want to just compress stuff to shit. And I remember hearing, I don't remember if it was Doom Eternal, and people were going through, like, there was a whole issue with like Mick Gordon and how Bethesda, oh my gosh, it's Bethesda, the devs of that game, like they treated Mick like shit, like ended up taking a lot of his music and then like finishing it themselves, processing it themselves, stuff like that, and that it was just over compressed and whatnot. I remember them talking about stuff like that. I don't have the best ear, especially when I'm
these goals.
shooting demons, but
I'm sure you've heard the effect of turning a sound system up beyond its limitations. As the signal starts to exceed the limitations of the circuitry, the signal begins to be distorted. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't always a bad thing. Muddy Waters and other guitarists made music with innovative guitar sounds that harnessed what some would call improper gain staging. However, while some types of distortion are pleasing, different types of systems distort audio signals in different ways. The consequences of overdriving an analog circuit or saturating analog tape are usually much more forgiving than the consequences of clipping a digital audio system. It isn't just the individual channels that you need to worry about either. You may have encountered a situation where none of the individual channels were clipping, but the meters on the master bus were solid red.
hey, good morning, Drew.
It's best to leave some headroom in your mixing system so that the combined level of all of the inputs doesn't exceed the limitations of the master bus. Later on, I'll show you how to set up a mix to make sure that you get this right. But for right now, it's just important that you understand that you need to leave enough headroom when setting levels.
I come at compression from a different direction, home theater. Yeah. Ooh, I just lighter than this. And that it's still kind of doing the same thing, but there's also decompression. Like there's equipment that can decompress and stuff. But yeah, like that. I already, my first lesson was on compression. I'll definitely be doing another one. Yeah, because you're lowering that range. That's why they'll have like when you're playing the game and they've got like headphones or night, or they've got a lot of settings like specifically for that. And even on my like on my Be Right Back screen, I have clips from the last like 2.5 years ish. And so with my equipment changing and just, you know, losing my hard drive, and so OBS had to be completely reset up and all of that. Just some clips are way louder, some are way quieter. And I did apply a compressor to that so that it brings out some of those quieter ones a little bit, but also, so when I laugh, like I have a pretty high pitched laugh and stuff, that it's kind of not high pitched, but also just very sudden and very loud, and it kind of helps with that. Still some range, but not as much.
We also want to set up the gain of the system to minimize noise. The signal to noise ratio is the difference between the noise floor and the signal. Generally speaking, the quieter the noise floor can be in comparison to the signal, the better. Let's say you want to record the sound of your voice to a tape machine. Using the gain knob on your microphone preamp, you're able to control the level of the signal to be recorded. Turn the knob up and you'll get a louder recording. Turn the knob down, you'll get a quieter recording.
Now, I don't know for me, like one thing I might look into is a different setting. Let me look at the channel. I guess my gain is right. Well, this is the output, right? Testing. Yeah. Maybe it would be different. Like maybe I would want to change my gain for something. Yeah, like just bumping this up a bit for Ableton. Or but I could also do some others.
To avoid overdriving the tape machine, you're careful not to turn the signal up too loud. But you should also consider what might happen if the signal is too quiet. The tape has a certain level of inherent noise of its own. The tape noise stays the same no matter how high or low you set the mic preamp. If you record a very weak signal to the tape, the signal to noise ratio will be very small. Plus, once your voice is recorded, you'll need to turn up the signal to bring it to a usable level. And when you boost the signal, you'll also be boosting the noise. If a strong signal is sent to the tape from the beginning, the signal to noise ratio will be much greater. And it's not just analog tape that has inherent noise. All devices will add some bit of noise to the signals passing through them. be searching for the sweet spot between too high, which might lead to overdrive or distortion, and too low, which might end up shrinking your signal to noise ratio. And like I said before, the approach is a bit different depending on if you're using analog or digital gear. With analog equipment, we tend to set levels a bit higher because noise is our biggest concern. Plus, if you slightly exceed the limitations of the equipment, it may even sound desirable. With digital systems, we tend to set the levels a bit lower because noise is a much smaller problem, and the consequences of overdriving a digital system into
That makes sense.
on a VU meter, which is equal to plus 4 dBu. Plus 4 dB VU, and the consequences of overdriving a digital system into clipping will completely ruin your recording.
Yeah, it will.
You'll even see a difference between the types of meters used in analog versus digital systems. When setting levels in the analog realm, we'll usually aim for peaks around 0 dB VU on a VU meter, which is equal to plus 4 dBu. Plus 4 dBu is the professional standard for line level signals. Most digital systems use an entirely different scale for metering called full scale. When setting levels in a digital system with a full scale meter, the signal should...
Okay, so I think this is going to refer back to the first video, 2 videos we watched. Well, especially the first video where he was talking about specific levels to at least play around with. So like an average dB of like minus 18 and max of minus 6, I think.
Never exceed
Not
0
ish.
dB full scale or 0 dB FS. If a signal reaches 0 dB FS, it won't be properly quantized by the system, and you'll start to hear the sound of digital clipping. Opinions vary on this, but I like to set signals so that the peaks are at about minus 12 dB full scale, and the signal averages out about minus 18 dB full scale. This gives you a lot of headroom
Okay, so
for
still,
the signal
this
to
person
breathe, while
advises
also paying
average at
attention
minus
to
18
maximizing
as
the
well.
signal to noise ratio.
A little bit lower.
Throughout the signal
peak.
chain, there are many places other than the microphone preamp that you can adjust the gain. So it's important to be aware of our signal chain.
Okay.
So I like to start with smartphones, laptops. Input meter shows peaks at about minus 12 dB full scale in a digital system or 0 dB VU in an analog system.
Yeah, mine's kind of
In your
built
DAW
in. I think
software, you can
I'm
sometimes
going to be
adjust the
okay.
gain of a region. This is a good place to set initial levels for your mix if you're mixing tracks that were sent to you at a level that is too high or too low. When using an equalizer, you're adjusting the gain of the signal. Boosting high frequencies with a high shelf will increase the overall level of the signal. Cutting low frequencies with a high-pass filter will decrease the overall level. You should also consider the effects of dynamics processing, like compressors, expanders, and duckers. These tools often have a makeup gain knob that allows you to increase the level to compensate for the gain reduction you've applied. Each auxiliary send knob, channel fader, bus master, and master fader is a place where you can influence the gain structure of the signal chain. In general, it's best to start with faders at unity so that signals pass through without being boosted or attenuated. Rather than
If I may interrupt the question, what was the URL of that page that you showed that lists studio headphones? It included mine. I think I just Googled, I have no idea what the URL is. I think I just Googled best entry or best mid-range monitors for mixing or something like that. And it's on a lot of lists. Because we looked at like
system output volume.
quite a
It's
few
best to
pages
keep
that
the
night,
master
and it was
fader
on
at unity
multiple
and adjust
of them.
the loudness of the system with the monitor knob on your audio interface.
If you know what day it was,
or
I
the
can
amplifier level control
maybe go
to find
look,
the
but
appropriate level
or I can look after stream or something. Right now, I'm trying to
Let me show you the process I would use to make sure I'm setting
focus
up
on
proper
this.
gain structure in a new session within a DAW. These steps might seem really simple, but trust me, this is probably where 90% of mixes go wrong. I want to set the initial level of the tracks so that they're at a workable level that still leaves some headroom in the master bus. In some DAWs, you can adjust the region gain directly, but if your DAW doesn't have this feature, you can simply drop a trim or gain plugin on each channel.
Okay, I think the rest of this
I'm going to
is
set the
fine.
level of each track
What is your
so that
gain
the
staging
meter on
process?
each input is at about minus 12 dB full scale. Notice that there's still plenty of headroom in the master bus with all of the track faders at Unity. Taking the time to set up each mix like this will allow you to work more comfortably.
Yeah,
So let me know in the comments, what is your
a lot of the same stuff, which means I do want to go back really quick and see what that's going to be.
If you produce
the max, what if I...
If you produce or mix your own music and you don't properly understand or implement gain staging, you could be ruining your mixes. Today I'm going to uncover. I've reset my mix, I've loaded in the stems, and everything defaults to 0 on how you do it and why it's important. 0 on the fader channel
really quick.
and 0 on our master channel. That's pretty good, okay, having it there. And the first stage of knowing how to set your levels is to understand the difference between peak volume and average volume. Because with gain staging, it's most important to consider the average volume, the volume that the signal has over a period of time, rather than one short, sharp, specific peak. A case in point, if we listen to our kick here, and that's with the dark green meter here, but the light green meter is the average volume, and you can see it's actually a bit lower than the peak volume, and that's all even more pronounced. So you can see we're peaking at about -12, and our average volume is about -28.
Pretty sure he said
-26,
-6, but I wanted to just double
this little fellow here
check on
enables
it.
the equivalent of one of these. You need to get it so with all the fader channels, it's hitting about -18 on the average level. So with all the faders set
Or did
to
he say
0,
anything
let's
about
try that for
peak
the kick.
even?
So we can see the light green meter
Or just focus on
is
the...
just about in the right
average.
place, about -18. You don't need to be super accurate with this, by the way. So now let's do that for the drums as well. So we can just copy our utility plugin.
Okay, well, right now, I'm not going to worry about the peak as long as it's not peaking. And I'm going to open this up. So I know the noise that all equipment has, tape, hiss, etc., which was discussed a few minutes ago. Sometimes it's called the equipment's noise floor. Yeah. Yep, and that's why sometimes, interference can affect that noise floor. And it's kind of just a broad term as far as like if I am recording audio, if I'm recording music, I'm probably not going to have my fan blowing. Like even if one looks at my, like if I'm not saying anything, there's still a bit of that. And I guess that's kind of also noticeable when looking at kind of what I got what the gate is at, what probably not the compressor, but yeah, where the gate is at. Anyways, I am going to mess around for a little bit with this project and try and implement some of that stuff. I might have to do some drastic stuff actually, but we can apply a little bit of the compression stuff we learned in the last episode. And I might just go through all of them. Do I want the harmonies turned off? Because I applied. Can't remember if I had applied anything. Oh, I did throw a utility on. Oh, but like in this violin section, parts of it go down to -26 on this. So I'm wondering. I don't know if it'd be the same as I could just like copy this but throw a utility on the front. For one, I'm going to get easier access to the utility itself. It's not that hard to do, but I'm just going to rename, what's the name? Utility. I'll call it utilities, but so far we just have the utility in there. Percussion, drums, warm and wide. That's something was recommended for that. I don't have any percussion in this. So I did do some moving with we got mixer and okay, this one only has track panning. I think I'm okay. Oh, wait, except hold up. Yeah, this is another one where I do have this, but I wonder if I were to, oh, Control Z on that. Actually, oh wait, this is the whole song. Okay, so what I'm trying to do with the automation on is I want to hit Control C and then add a utility at the beginning and do that just so there, that is there. Now if I hit Control V, that okay, that didn't quite work. I was hoping it would just take the values itself. Because, wait. Yeah, I have it at 0 dB up here. For now, I'm going to leave it. It's kind of just for like taking out, actually, I think I just basically am using it as a fader in the beginning and stuff. And then to fade out down here. So for now, I'm going to leave it. But I think that would be easy enough to take out again. There was a few places where I thought I took out the clicking, but maybe it was in... Okay, these would be more important. Like if I go through the chorus, I took out some of the clicky parts. For now, when I'm looking at them, I'll turn the vocals back on, but... So that... Just from some finger movements on an acoustic guitar. Now, maybe a transient shaper or even like a compressor or something like that would be something I could do to do that. But let me go into this mode and pull these up. And okay, these are these are channels here. Actually, I mean that one's it's already kind of at 18 average. I must not have turned those off. I was pretty sure I did. For now, I just kind of want to see the levels and I don't want to hear myself. Honestly, for this particular part, well, actually, now let me double check something. Never mind. This isn't one of the... I think my others... At least one other song I have, or one other project I have... oh, shit. Okay. Someone mentioned this last time, and I have no idea why it's on there. There's apparently... an automation for... the track panning. That... Like, if you see it, it's like... Okay. So let me just restart and take that off right away. This is probably not necessary. Subscribed. Base, 2 months. Good morning. How are you doing?
That's more than one.
It's so true. If they tell you anything different, you send them to me. How's it going? Okay. Wait, what? I'm just trying to highlight you and delete you. There we go. I'm on episode 2 and I'm looking at gain staging right now. And although this one's not as, so far, as bad as I thought, I do see looking at these guitars down here, I have this at like -11, which isn't awful. And delay, and I'll have to mess with that. Oh, and that's just the volume fade, which is overall fine. So this is -5 dB. I'm curious if I were to take a utility. Well, hold on. Okay, sorry. First thing, I'm saving this. I don't know why that panning is in the front. It doesn't make sense. I have like, it was just dot, 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 dot. I have no idea how something like that happens. Hey, good morning, Talos. How's it going? But yeah, this one, I think I just accidentally did okay gain staging overall so far. Because if I wanted to take okay, let me have a look at this. If I take a utility here and I do that and I just have it at -5, so nothing with the utility, and I'm looking at acoustic solo. All right, I'm looking at these right here, but it's gonna have to be playing. Automation. Just woke up. Nice. I'll be going to bed probably in a little bit here, but yeah, I work all weekend. It sucks. I've had like a week and a half off, but it's been like because I'm sick or difficult moving my neck and stuff. So got lots of stuff done, I guess. Well, got lots of games played. So okay, actually, it is a little bit tougher because of how I have it split, maybe. Average, though, is pretty close to -18. But on this, this is going to be the most important part, I think. Overall, I still need to keep an eye on that. But if this is averaging about -24, why is it? Did I not put the utility on? I'm confused. I'm 99% sure I just put a utility on that. Okay. Well, I'm on this then. Looking at just this part. And instead of having it with an automation on this particular thing right here and being -5, My intent is to drag this down here, drop it. Maybe I can just type it. -5 there. Reset this. And it looks like the average is still doing about this. Hold on. Okay, let me keep an eye on it. It's about -30. -26. If I re-enable automation and take off the utility. Okay. All right, so that does the same thing. So kind of having that right there, returning this back to 0. So if I need to make some fine adjustments towards the end, and the reason they described is because, you know, where I'm moving my mouse right here is 6 decibels, but 6 decibels down here is just this tiny bit. So it's just because it's logarithmic instead of linear. That's why it just helps, and it can give me some more fine control. And I can still, I believe, take the automation I have here, which is just a fade out at this point, from -5 to -25. Now, I'm going to be changing this anyways, because -5 to -25. So if I take the utility, here's what I'm going to do. It's at the 89th bar, and it just fades down to -25, which it just fades out. That's the important thing. So I take the utility, and not on, but the gain takes it from -5. It was somewhere down here. Let's type it in, -25. I don't know if it'll look... I think it shows it as at a different spot, but it should still be... So utility, mixer, -5 to -25, -5 to -25. So that should do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the mixer, and I'm just going to delete this to keep it at 0. So that takes off the automation off of there. Nice. Now I'm going to bring it up to an average of -18, and we're going to go from there. And in fact, just because I think I need to start saving stuff like this, and there, it's saved. Change made. Now we have some easier stuff to do with that, and I can adjust these things a bit more finely. Fine. Okay. So all I have is tuners on these. I don't really need that. Now, obviously it sounds a bit different because our other ones, where does it want to re-enable automation? Okay. I guess that's one thing to be aware. So, it takes away the automation because it went to -5 automatically. I think I'll just intentionally do it. I'll just kind of listen to it at some point. Take this out, I guess. Because now we're at +5 dB to get the average up. And then I can, okay, thinking. I think what I'll end up doing is once I've got my everything in there, then I'll have another utility here that I will use. So I'll rename it. Let's see, I'm on the acoustic solos-ish. I'm on that bus. So end of the chain. Maybe I'll rename it so I can read it a bit easier. It's solo and utility. I got to figure out a naming convention. Good enough. I'm trying to think of like when I'm looking for stuff in here, I'll be looking for utility. It'll be easiest if I have utility in the front and then just the specific utility I'm looking for, acoustic solo. Okay, and it's easier to read in that menu. And then I'll fade that out as I go along. Take those off. I think I'm gonna save that. We're tearing this thing up for now. I wonder if there's a better way to collapse tracks. Now we can just see a few more. I guess I can probably move these. I might move this. I might change the sends around and the delay there, but I do want to start doing more of my effects through sends and through buses instead of instead of okay, what is this? Just the acoustic guitar instead of in the channel itself. All right, so here, acoustic guitar. I have a compressor on there. However, what this compressor is doing, I wish I had a better way to zoom into what I'm doing. I can maybe, while doing this, I might be able to, is it preferences? Zoom display 123. What if we go to, well, I kind of like having the space. And maybe it's just my preview. My preview is pretty small, so maybe I need to stop judging it off. Like, that's really hard to see. But I'll still try and explain what I'm doing. So I do have this compressor on here chained. I wanted to turn the guitar down with my vocals. However, hold on. I think what I need to do is have all of my effects off. I do have a utility on that I am using. Violins. I do have some wild volume stuff here. Attack, release with motion. Family stuff. Did you take a break recently? Yeah. For what? Did I miss something or? Insert audio effects after instruments. Oh, can you not put a utility on? Can it go before? It just has to be after the instrument. Gotcha. I mean, I've taken a couple breaks. I've eaten snacks, some trail mix, a lot of omega-3 trail mix. I've probably taken like 3 or 4 breaks tonight. Where was I? This one. I'm trying to decide if I want to. For now, I think I can. If I save this, I think it still has access to returning the automation if I want it. What automation do I even have? It is track volume, which I want to control with the utility instead. So I have that at 0. So it's probably going to be loud. I wonder if there's a good way to... Oh, I guess this is just the staccato violins too. I also want one in here. I mean, these are only -6, which isn't awful. And that's kind of off with some kind of fade-ins. Can I shrink this down a bit? Maybe. I'll have to look more into adjusting that type of stuff because I think I've just flat out got the MIDI cello on there. We'll fold that. Are you off tonight? No, I work all weekend. Oh, I was saying you might have been busy because when you asked like if you really wanted to, or do you just feel obligated? That's what I was talking about. It's like like when it was both. That's when I mentioned that I work all weekend and I don't want to sit through it and be like, man, I had a good opportunity to do another one of these and didn't. Okay. I'm doing it. How do I turn the automation off on this? If I click here, turn this automation off. Now, this could be loud, possibly. But okay, dang it, that's one thing I'll not have to do too. So a lot of this will be like in future projects when I'm setting stuff up, I'm going to be setting this type of gain staging stuff up after or before. Jesus. Oh, I can just close those if I want to. Cool. Cool. All right, so I've got them all here. Let's start from the beginning. I'm getting ready to pause just in case it's really loud. But we're sitting around -18. I'm okay with that. But I've still got, oh man, okay. It shouldn't matter as much for reverb. This compressor, I'm pretty sure, is doing nothing. It's a 4 multiband compressor. I've got gain range attack. So it's doing something, but I don't want to use this compressor anyways. So it's gone. We're starting this thing bare bones ish. Delete you. Reverb is off for now. All I have is the utility on. utility, utility. Throw one at the beginning of this Vox group. Throw one at the beginning of this one. Acoustic guitar. I do have a compressor, but it's not on because we're doing it without effects, so we can properly gain stage. Now, I think it doesn't matter as much. Well, no, it does. It does. We're just trying to get a good look at the view here. A good view at the look. A good... like the tuner. I don't want it EQ'd yet. Center stereo. I do have this plugin. I think I was just experimenting and kind of forgot about it, which is a bit worrisome. I don't know if this just center stereo. Actually, I could see this being good for some other stuff. But I guess we're going to turn it off for now. Okay, chunky rhythm guitar. Oh, that's just leading into, okay. We're going to throw a utility on that. And do that. We're going to have to turn that down for sure. Actually, let me do Control Z. Control Z. I had it at -11. Let me start it at -11 so it's not too loud. Let's type it in. Return that to 0. Now all of, well, what do you got going on? This one, everything's at 0 except it's taking out the clicks. I'm going to leave that automation in there. And I can always borrow it to do it some other way or turn it off and try some other ways of removing those types of clicks. But I think this is one of the better ways. Okay. Saving right now. I think even if I load it up and I click this button right here that says, I like the descriptions right now. They help me a lot. Re-enable automation. But right now, okay, cello. It doesn't let me turn. Sorry, I gotta get used to it. I don't really use that view much, so I gotta get used to that because it genuinely is useful. Well, we're gonna hear me sing, I guess. Okay, so this is staccato violins. At some point I might have to like look more into so sleepy when it's your bedtime. I was gonna do this for maybe till like 9 o'clock my time, just to have like a 2-hour video to put up, and then that'd be my bedtime. I'll sleep from then ish until 4 p.m. probably, then go to work. I guess. I think it's gonna want me to. It's gonna want me to do it. I don't want to do it, but it's gonna want me to. Okay, chunky rhythm guitar. I think I might be able to record you and do some more with you at some point, but let's see what happens when we... See, I don't really want to turn those up. I don't want to turn those up at all. Okay. I guess I'm gonna wait for a chorus before. Whoops, that's loud. Yeah, those are about 18. So I'm looking for the bright green, like about kind of where it is. And we're trying to get them around -18. Tripped up. I don't necessarily hate the tripping up on tripping up, but I want to get it like rhythmic. I mean, this is already just a lot louder. My master's sitting at a good spot, and I still have things I can compress. Okay, so if I'm saving this. I'm just doing it. Honestly, their levels are kind of fine. That's where they can sit, and I can adjust the rest as I'm working through it. So if I get to my guitars right here, I've got the sidechain compressor. So I've got the compressor on. But I'm intentionally wanted to go down for the vocals. So it's just kind of doing some automatic volume mediation. But I think we can add another compressor on here. On these, so mostly this is a gain staging video, but I'm gonna take these last few minutes and just now I could just do a glue compressor or a compressor. I don't have anything on the master track, do I? Oh, I do have a glue compressor on there, which is whatever, it's fine for now. But I'm trying to do this for my guitar itself. I think I can bring up some of the quieter stuff while keeping the other stuff down. And I've got ozone 10, neutron 4. I don't know. Yeah, when I go back, I'm definitely gonna do a compressor episode, or a compressor part 2 for a different episode at some point. And look more into multi-band compressors. I'm going to mention that right now. Actually, compression, multi-band compression. All right. That said, I'm just going to throw in a stock Ableton compressor on there. And I'm going to get to a good spot where it's playing. And we're going to loop it. I just realized I didn't actually have the loop on like I intended the first time. This is all the same, but that's fine. So it's just going to stay between these parts here while I turn the threshold. Now, we talked about RMS, root mean square, and it does show that down in the bottom left here. Compressor is less sensitive to short peaks and responds more slowly. So, okay, responds to short peaks. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna try. And so let me see. Okay, well, violin's popping the fuck off. Jesus, chill. So now my average is down here, so I can turn up, well, maybe I'll set the compression to like 90% dry wet, and I'm going to do the makeup gain. Now that's too much, and I don't know exactly how to... Oh, ow. So I'm going to boost it. So I don't know if you can hear a little bit more of the other stuff. Even then, no, I don't know if I have this low enough. And also with an acoustic guitar, I mean, it looks pretty in and out, so I don't know. What if I turn this down a bit? No, you don't normally want to solo. Okay, that's very noticeable. That's not... Yeah, we're definitely taking off too much there. Now, as far as vocals, I have a reverb set for the vocals. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to sidechain the reverb on this. And what that will allow me to do is be more fine-tuned. I could EQ my voice if I need to, although the mic, I have it set in the mixer, but I'm going to EQ that. But so it can allow you lots of different things. You can, if you don't want reverb to affect everything, or you can also sidechain it that way. So it automatically turn the reverb down a little bit while your voice is singing. So, but then it kind of brings it back to normal settings when words aren't being sang or when that track isn't active, which can let those ends trail, but then it's not getting as muddy when the singing is going on, is the intent with that. So I don't think I'm going to worry about this. I just kind of threw reverb on there, to be honest. So it's probably going to, I didn't actually have it active anyways. Do I have it? I do have auto tune. Oh, I have 3 of them. So reverb is still on these. I don't want that. I did still have that active on those. That was, whoops. I should see if it's the same for the, wait. Oh, okay, never mind. I only have the vocals in left and right, I believe. Let me check this other view. Oh, never mind. I don't even have that. I just have them set left and right. But the thing that I have is the harmony engine, which I was messing around with, which I think could be cool. I don't know if I should just work on other ways to harmonize my stuff, but this does some spread automatically and or what you set it to. So that's why I don't have it split, because harmonies can sound better when they're in a wider stereo field, but not super worried about that right now. And I do have reverb on this as well. Whoopsie daisies. And a compressor. I don't know why I have them on the harmonies. What was I doing, chat? I mean, the compressor's not a bad thing on its own, although actually glue compressor would be, I think glue compressor would maybe be a better looking thing, but. All right, so without reverb, Okay, that said though, I'm going to maybe, so there's a reverb and there's delay, and those are the sends, and that's how I want to do it, but I am going to try a room reverb. I did get Valhalla room reverb, and I want to insert a return track. I'm going to rename it to Val room. Just, I don't know if I need to be that descriptive. I probably do for myself. They have some free ones. I have bought Shimmer and Room. I don't think Shimmer is anything I'd want to add, but now I'm curious. If I just throw Shimmer on and then I send my vocals to Shimmer, which is C. Okay. What?
Never let you feel like you are settling. I'll never let you feel like you're alone. I'll never let you feel like you are not alone. When I'm with you, baby, I'm home.
I think adding reverb and stuff to the violins, maybe not the staccato ones, but
I'll always show you what you mean to me. I'll always
you can kind of hear it cooking back there. Okay, no, I don't like it for that. I don't know how much. I don't think shimmer is supposed to go on vocals. Maybe that would be something. Okay, actually, sorry. Staccato. What if we? We're just a little bit where I got. Wait, what did I turn it up on?
I'll always show you
Okay, my bad.
what you mean to me. I'll always do my best to make you smile.
I think we'll have 100% reverb here
I'll always
because.
listen hard when you are
Well, wait, I don't actually know what's best for that.
love you like it's going out of style. But I won't let it go out of style. Never let you feel
Oh wait, yeah, because it's going to the master and to.
never let you feel like you're alone. I'll never let you feel like you're not loved. When I'm with you, baby, I'm home.
Preset. Is there like a... Oh, okay. I see.
I'll always show you what you mean to me. I'll always do my best to make you smile. I'll always listen hard when you are struggling. I'll love you like it's going out of style.
So I could do something like this, for example. But then here... Wait. Does... Actually, I don't know if... Now that I think about it. This is something I'll have to look up. I don't know if Valhalla Room has sidechain abilities. Can you sidechain Valhalla Room? Not sidechain. Wait. Yeah. And this will be more in the actual reverb section that I plan on doing. Okay, now I'm looking and I'm like, well, shit, what if I actually just went to the regular reverb? And there should be a... some way, maybe I need to do some more looking into it. There is a way to like sidechain it, like I was describing. I'm not seeing duplicate, show preset, nope. Reflect, diffuse. freeze, flat, cut, stereo, shape, relay. What about other reverbs? Okay, audio effects. You just look at them all. Reverb and resonance. Maybe a hybrid reverb? I swear at least one of these has sidechain capabilities. Dark Hall delay, bass, mono, vintage. Or actually, never mind. I think what you'd have to do is have a compressor on there, sidechain to it, but you'd have the compressor on the reverb itself. Okay, I'm gonna delete this. I think convolution reverb. Does it have anything like that? I don't think it does. Mode, single or split, type. Nope, I think I'm just being an idiot. But I haven't done the reverb section yet, so I cannot be held accountable for this. Them's the facts. Okay, so if I go back to Valhalla Room, and here's what I want to test. If I do a compressor, not that one though. Here's what I'm gonna do. I did it on my acoustic guitar here. Maybe there's a setting that I missed. This one. It looks like it's the same. Perhaps one of those could do it, but either way, I'm gonna try this here, and then that'll be it for this section. As far as gain staging though, what I'll be doing next is I'll be taking things and like adding the effects I want, getting them to sound what I want at the volumes, and then I will take things and mix them in where they need to go at what levels to sound as close as I can get them to how I want them. As far as this goes though, I guess this would just be... Yep, okay, I was missing a button. Well, now I'm wondering if I was actually... Okay, there's no expansion up there. Okay, but so now what I'm doing is I'm clicking... So I'm on my reverb send. And I'm side chaining it to my vocals. Which has everything but the harmonies, which is fine. Sometimes if I do anything with the harmonies, it's probably going to have its own thing. And I can just add another compressor to sidechain that too. I think post effects is fine. I think that's the general one. So I'm going to go into a part of the song where I'm singing it repeatedly just to see what it's doing over and over.
Always show you what you mean to me. I'll always do my best to make you smile. I'll always listen hard when you are struggling. I'll love you like it's going out of style. But I won't let it go out of style.
Okay, so that's kind of the point of it, is that you can still hear the reverb while I'm singing, because I need to learn more about reverb and do that type of stuff. But since I'm sidechaining it through, so this entire vocal group, which has my split takes, which is just copy and pasted, and then I put a little delay on it to get some kind of sense of space. But also, I don't think I want them going 50 and 50. I don't even know if I want them going this much, but I've got, I added delays here just to, I don't know. So I've got the center track. I don't know. I might try and record multiple. I don't know.
Always show you what you mean to me. I'll always do my best to make you smile.
So I've got it drastic. I don't know if you would want dry wet or not. I feel like with compression, we learned kind of, at least for compression of an instrument, I don't know if it was the same for Ascend, but wait, why is that?
Always show you what you
Maybe it doesn't matter because it's
mean to
Ascend.
me. I'll always do my best to make you smile. I'll always listen hard when you are struggling.
So it's pretty drastic. I don't know if this is something we would normally want. Maybe if I make it 7-1.
Always show you what you mean.
And then have it with the mix.
I'll always do my best to make you smile.
And I'm going to turn off the harmonies.
I'll always listen hard when you are struggling.
One side.
I'll love you like it's going out of style. But I won't let it go out of style. Always show you what you mean to me. I'll always do my best to make you smile. I'll always listen hard when
Actually, we're keeping it because our main vocals are still going to the master. Yeah, it's muddy right there. I'll have to. There's some weird sound, like it kind of pulses a bit. So whether that's threshold or my makeup gain or a setting I have over here, those are things to look into and to get better at. But so ultimately what I should be doing, like once I have my compressor where it sounds like I want it, I mean, it's still. Controls the cutoff frequency of a low pass filter. What if I want a low cut?
I'll love
So what I could also do at this point is throw an EQ. I could do EQ8. It's a great one. That's a stock one. I don't want this low stuff being sent here to be there. So, number one, we're gonna have. Can I have a sharper? Oh, I can turn the Q up, I'm sure. Just kidding, I don't. I just want. Ah, that's what I was looking for. So, some stuff to look at. I honestly think I'm going to enjoy listening to this or doing this type of stuff more. Having a good starting place with gain staging. It might have even been like the first one. Like, it's not as important as some people make it out, I don't think, but it is good to still have an idea for where you're starting. And I have an idea. And I think being able to do better compression with my guitars, especially my acoustic guitars, they can just, the way I play and still getting used to recording them. I might lay down some other guitar tracks. I might try vocal type stuff again and layer them that way instead of duping them and delaying them. But we'll call that a good place for now. Yeah, because I'll have to go through, and there was some weird like pulsing, and it might have been my attack, it might have been my release, adding some of that pulsing, it might have been something entirely different. But I am overall pretty happy with gain staging and working that into projects. So thanks for watching. Again, the links, you might have seen them. I was in, they were done up there when I posted them, and they will be in the description on YouTube down below when this video is up. And yeah, thanks for watching.